Hello, everybody. This is Eric. Good to be with you tonight. Um, I have lots of things to share tonight, and my goal is to try to take us from a state of not feeling well, if that's where you are, to feeling better than when you left. That's why this is called Tuesday Night Comfort Hour. Um, I'm trying to get a nice spot so that the background looks appropriate. So, I yeah, there's just been a lot of things happening this week, and I need to push. Oh, good. It automatically starts. Fancy that automation. So, if, and maybe you're not in a state of panic or a state of crisis, but I think I wanted to talk about what do we do when we're in crisis. And I've had crisis in my life, and I'm sure you have. It's kind of a little bit of a myth, but there is some truth to that. That the Chinese character, the language character, the Chinese language, the character for crisis is actually opportunity. That there's this sense that they're very similar, and so I think that we ought to see that these crises in our life is something good. If we fight them, they often get worse. If we don't see any good in it at the time, I think that's okay, but it takes time to be able to process things. I have a trusty helper bringing a book for me. Thank you, Joe. You're a lifesaver there. I want to share this book. I've known about it for a long time, but I thought I would bring it up tonight. It's kind of a side issue, but I have to say I'm really enjoying it. It's written by James Wilson, who is a chiropractor as well as he has a lot of degrees, and he's naturopathic and then also his PhD. It's, I'd say, alternative medicine book, but as you can see, there's lots of pictures, and it's one of those that I used, and I didn't use, then I used, and I didn't use. There's a lot of interesting things about it on adrenal fatigue. Like, for instance, you can do a blood pressure check. You can just read the book, but the idea is that when you lie down and you step up, your blood pressure should raise. If it's not raising, that could be a sign of adrenal fatigue. Drawing on your skin around your waist here. I won't scare you to death by showing you my bare skin, but when you draw on it, is there a lasting line? If it turns white and stays white, that's not good. Also, pupil dilation, where you're in a dark room, you shine a flashlight. I haven't done this. But if your pupils don't do what they're supposed to do, I'm kind of purposefully not saying what the test is so that you don't take my words and run with it. You almost have to read the book or go look online. What I think is valuable about this is he just talks about how to take care of your adrenals, how to test. There's a questionnaire. And this is also online. Look up adrenal fatigue and James Wilson, and you'll get there. He'll talk about the function of the adrenal glands and hormones. And the adrenal glands sit right on top of the kidneys. And in Chinese medicine, that's the fear center. So I've always thought, liver is more anger. But it's interesting how these ancient understanding of a body and how they really did have a holistic approach with mind and body. The people that have irritable bladder, running to urinate a lot, could have anxiety. Really kind of interesting things of what we're holding on to. But we're going to do an exercise. You think you've heard everything. I really don't think like that. And then you come up with such a simple exercise, and it's like, wow, this is pretty cool. But before we talk about the exercise, which we'll get into, he'll talk a lot about lifestyle. He'll talk about good nutrition, exercise, sleep, nutrition. And in fact, what's another interesting thing is he believes that salt helps adrenal glands. That if you're really adrenal fatigued, that you could drink some water with salt in it. I won't say how much, but it's probably on the website. He'll say it'll either feel not salty enough to you, or it'll feel too salty. If it's too salty, add more water. If it's not salty enough, add more salt. He says as your adrenal glands heal, you'll feel like you need less salt. It's interesting, and I felt, and maybe it's totally placebo, but I feel pretty better doing this. And I'm not, well, I actually am selling it, but I'm not trying to sell it. I will say that I might as well share that. Hold on. Now, I do feel like I'm selling something, but it's not the major thing I'm going to be doing. But after a while knowing about the book, I decided to go ahead and buy this kit. I actually like it. I actually notice a difference, and that's why I'm bringing this up. Because if I didn't notice the difference, I wouldn't bring it up. But I do think, because of what we've been through, COVID-wise, drama with politics-wise, people stressed out. They're not sleeping. They're not feeling well. Why wouldn't we have more adrenal fatigue than ever? So I throw that out there. I notice a difference by taking the products. If you're interested, just go to the website. I don't make any money for it, except I lie in a sense that I might sell it here only for the standpoint of it saves on shipping, and I might buy some at wholesale, and if people want to get them, my personal clients can get them there. He talks about saliva, hormone tests, a number of things. I mean, it's really a packed book. And I'm finding, yes, it's about fatigue and adrenal fatigue. But a lot of what he's saying, actually, I've heard before, so it's kind of succinct. Like he'll talk about breathing exercises, slowing down your breath, which reminds me of Patrick McEwen. He talks about the relaxation response, which is a good thing, through Edmund Jacobson and Herbert Benson. We talked about that. Reframing exercise, I use that all the time. It's how we think affects how we feel. And if we frame something a certain way, it'll scare us to death. If we frame it another way, we'll feel better. So if you thought of every crisis you're going through as something good, it's a hurdle. It's a step to climb. And you have to do it to get through this life and even to find salvation, then you'll be fine. If you see it as, oh my gosh, I'm doing something wrong, I'm a bad person, and trying to just avoid pain at all costs, that causes us problems. Writing down self-talk, it goes on and on. But this exercise that was so simple, I never thought about it. And I just need to find it here. I'll talk while I'm finding it. It's the exercise where you write down things that are good for me and things that are not good for me. I thought, wow, that's pretty simple. Yeah, that's pretty simple, and I kind of made a list here. I should have marked this earlier. I think what I also appreciate about this is that, for instance, even this chart talks about all the things that influence adrenal gland. And when you start to think holistically, it's not for the aspect of being overwhelmed. It's to help you realize that this is not just a one linear solution that's going to make things get better. I do believe in simplicity, but for instance, caffeine, coffee, fear, unwanted unemployment, negative beliefs and attitudes, lack of relaxation, psychological stress, toxins, financial pressure, death of a loved one. When I was reading this, I thought, this sounds like what a lot of people have been through with COVID. Repeated stressors, infection, emotional stress, allergies, overexertion, smoking, lack of sleep, poor eating habits, sugar and white flour, lack of or excessive exercise, which I thought was so interesting, wound healing, and prescription, non-prescription drugs. All these things are just factors that affect adrenal glands. And he has you do a little assessment on stressors. He's done the famous Holmes ray. So here it is. So it's going to be a little bit there. And I'll read a little bit from this. I just thought it was very interesting. Separating the good from the bad and the ugly. It is important to be able to distinguish which things in your life are contributing to your health and which things are detracting from it. So the first step in helping yourself obtain a lifestyle you love is to make a complete and thorough list of all the things that are beneficial to your life and health and all the detrimental things in your life. To help you get clear on this, I use the following very simple but informative exercise. Take a piece of paper, date it, and draw a vertical line down the center. At the top of the left column, put good for me, and at the top of the right column, put bad for me. In the good column, list all the things that you feel contribute to your health and well-being. And it lists that. Do not put the things that should be good for you, but are good for you, which you find pleasurable or beneficial. Do not idealize or put what ought to be good for you. Reach into your heart and health and find out what makes you feel good and what you love in life. List all the things that bring you pleasure and add to your life, even if you haven't done them for a while. Okay, so when you're making this list, you may go, well, I love sugar. If you do the math on that, you realize that pleasurable things that really aren't good for us, we know. And he'll talk about sugar. In the bad things, in the bad column, lists everything he has underlined that seems detrimental to your health and well-being. Again, this can be physical, emotional, attitudinal. They may be work, family-related situations, relationships, eating and drinking patterns, anything that you are doing or involved with that is not good for you. In some aspects of a situation are good and some bad, separate them out. For example, if you have a job you love, but the grueling hours and fast-paced are exhausting. See, this is what I love about it. I love my work. In fact, I probably love it too much, and it's not good for me. I could read 3 books on spirituality, 3 books, projects on learning about how to help people in psychology. And on my list, which we should go to, I debated whether to do this, but I think I'm going to chance it. I have a list of what's good, and I was going to play around with my pen here, to write what is good, but the reality is, you can see I'm having trouble making it work. So there, come on now. And of course it helps if you plug it in. So just to give you a sense of how this works. There we go. What is good for me? But rather than make you go through the drama of this, I'm just going to go to a different window and show you what I wrote out earlier. So what is good for me is sleep. And you just write whatever comes to your mind. Don't try to filter it too much. We're often so critical. Nutrition, prayer. And I kept it generic and simple, but I know how much prayer, what kind of prayer is good for me. I work with a spiritual guide or a spiritual father on this. Exercise, I kind of know what exercise works for me. I tend as a person to not push myself enough in some ways. I'm a little bit afraid of over-exercising, which could cause muscle aches and pains. But I also know that if I'm so frightened that I don't go out there and do it, like for instance, kayaking, that may be very good for me. And it was. And I've had a couple of opportunities to kind of what I call impulsively do that. And then I don't pay for it the next way because I knew not to overdo it. But you don't want to underdo it either. Church, and I could say a lot on that, but this is just meant to be simple breathing. I know that breathing is good for me, and there are times I get so busy I don't really take time to breathe. Peaceful living. What that means is being at peace with people, zero anger. These are ideals here, and he said don't be idealistic. But what I'm saying is anger has never been, I can tell you this, anger, okay, let's get to, anger has never been good for me. It's never worked out. I mean, when I channel it and recycle it, I like this phrase. Recycling anger into something useful, sure. And that's probably better. Stuffing anger, no, that's not good. Being angry at situations I really have no business of being angry over, like politics and things so far from me. It's like, that's not really going to benefit my life other than I should just pray. I'm going to read some of this on the list here. I printed it out. Reading. Oh, lack of resentment. Like, what's good for me is not having resentments. Resent means to re-feel. Think the word sentimental. So, sentire means to feel in Latin. And if we re-feel things over and over and over and over, it's just a drain on our bodies. It's not good for us. What's good for me? Reading spiritual literature. And I had my own little studies. Like, if I have time in my life to read good spiritual literature, I feel good. It's like an antidepressant. I get in a good mood. And we'll bring this all into the crisis thing, but I'll take a side note here. I could be at my worst difficult time, and usually it would be a health-related crisis or a crisis with my family or something like that. And if I read something or I go hear a teaching from my pastor, like on church history or something like that, there is something so grounding about it. Hearing about what was happening in the 400s with Christianity, I don't know, it gets me out of my thoughts into something that I know, let's say like the church has been around a while, like 2,000 plus years, and the problems they faced are the same kind of problems, that there's really nothing new under the sun. So I do know that that's good, and for whatever, and I'll use this word politely towards myself, well, I won't say I'm stupid, but I want to emphasize that we can be stupid. We could forget what works for us and then not do it. And I think that there's a spiritual force and an enemy at play. So we beat ourselves up in a good way, hopefully to say, Eric, this has always worked, do it. And so that would be a go-to during crisis. Groups. I think I'll go back just for the sake of letting you see what I'm seeing. So groups. I have 12-step group, but just a group of people, whether it's church group, and And one-on-one is good. And I have this friendship calls when I call a good friend. These are all grounding for me. But when I'm in a group, there's some kind of stabilizing factor. And I am kind of an extrovert where I get energy by being with groups of people. Yeah, and I used to do teaching, large groups, and I just get really excited about that. I do understand some people actually lose energy by being in a group, and they're more introverted, so they need to be by themselves, and that's okay. Everybody's list will look similar, but it'll look different. And I've had friendship calls where in a crisis, I was having colon surgery, and my pastor, well, I was 8 days in a hospital, which wasn't the most fun. Wah, wah, wah. This was back in 2000. But anyway, the surgeon comes in, says, Eric, we have some fortuitous news for you. Oh, okay. As I'm suffering from this owie, colon surgery is not the most easy to recover from. He says, we took out your appendix and we found a tumor. And it's like, oh, okay, I didn't know you were going to take out my appendix, but they take it out regular as a routine thing. And why not? And it was smart of them to send everything to a lab, and they found a little tumor in that. Not that I had ordered that on the menu in my life. And it's a carcinoid, an extremely rare tumor. It's slow growing and cancer-like. So, of course, I'm by myself. It's like 9 o'clock at night, and I start spin cycling this, like, oh my gosh. And he's a good doctor, but he says things like, well, we'll do regular screening. Colon rectal cancer could be higher, but it's not cancer. It's like, okay. Carcinoids secrete serotonin, which actually is a whole other story, and it can cause serotonin syndrome. But it's out. So anyway, I start to spin cycle this because one of my weaknesses probably is worries about health. And I do this, I think, maybe for an hour, and then it's like, you know what, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to call my priest, who's wonderful. I call him, and I hardly ever call him. I mean, I just don't. I see him enough. Now, this is before texting. I text him a lot, but not call, because it would have to be, I'd have to be on my deathbed while I was in a hospital. I call him, hello, yes. And now that I think there's a funny aspect to this story. Maybe he called me and I didn't quite recognize him. He had come to visit. I explained the situation. He said, yeah, I think it's just the medication's making you a little bit overboard with this. And that's all I had is, yeah, that's right. I've just had some surgery. And it was grounding. And there's nothing I can do about it. And then I was fine. And to be honest with the story, it's kind of fine, recovering. And then months later, I decided to look online. And sure enough, it's on the cancer side. And then I spin cycle that. And then I realized, I felt like hot wax going down my back. Like, oh my gosh, the blood left my head. Like, this is under the cancer thing. And you start reading things. And so I just learned through that experience that, you know what, I can't control that. I can do some things, but we're gonna run into trouble if we try to control things. And that's why I titled this Getting a Grip by Letting Go. And it's very paradoxical. And we'll talk about things we can do and things we can't do. So confession is good for me. It's on the list. And if I don't go to confession often enough, I get sick. Music, again, this is me trying to use the pen here. And it has this feature where I can't make it stop writing. Balance. Oh, singing. When I'm singing, I feel better. And I relate that to breathing, believe it or not. Time for self. If I just have time to kick around and do what I want to do, some of my hobbies, I feel better. slower pace. I'm talking fast, but a slower pace. If I feel overwhelmed, too many things I'm doing, I don't do well. It's just not good for me. Balance. Now that's very non-concrete. So it's almost more like describing a state of when I'm good rather than a thing. So I thought, okay, let's stick to being concrete here. And there's more I could have done. What is not good for me is lack of sleep, not exercising, media, just being on the news, looking at negative stuff, rushed prayers is not good for me, too much work. Now I love my work, but just too much of it is just not good for me. Too much reading about things. I didn't put it here, but too many books to read. Critical thought and poor food. Poor food for me is chips. Okay, so I encourage you to look at what your lists are. And in fact, here is the let's go to the screen here. When you get your list, this is what you do. And use as many sheets of paper, take as much time as necessary. You may have to do some 2 and 3 sessions, but really look to see what is working and what is taking away from your life until you have a complete inventory of the good and the bad. There is no maximum or minimum number of items to put in each column. This is not a test. There is no pass or fail, no right or wrong answers, etc. This is just what's good for me and what's bad for me. And in this example, it's interesting. Under good for me, they put, and underneath it says, makes me more alive, healthy, happy. Bad for me, drains me, takes away my energy and health. Good for me, that on this person, the friendship with Sarah, bike riding, quiet reading, eating regular meals. Oh, that's one. I can have irregular meals where I just work or get whatever. Breathing fresh air all day. Learning speed reading for this person. Bad for me. Smoking. Being a couch potato. Resentment of John for leaving me. Not eating regularly makes my head thick, lower energy. Working more than one night per week. Being a perfectionist. So I love how he's looking at this. Being around Martin, so I guess that's a relationship where it's just really not good. Not telling people how I really feel. See, that's what I love about this, that it really encompasses a number of things, staying up too late. So through prayer, and this also relates to another approach with mind-body medicine. You'll see its similarities. It says review each column and then circle the 5 most significant entries in each column. So you may have 20, 30, 40 items, but go through and figure out what are the top 5 in each. And then he says rate them from 1 to 5, with 1 being the most important and 5 being the least. So identify the items that are so hard on you. So the bad, look at the number 1 item that's hurting you the most. I love this because, see, you can make a list of 20, 30 items and then you have it. And it's like, well, good. And now I'm so overwhelmed because I'm panicking and I'm stressed. I can't deal with that. Yeah, simple, simple, simple. And that's what's needed. And then from there, in fact, I'm being a little bit distracted. I'm sorry, I wanted to be on time, but I have a computer on right next to this other computer, and it's probably draining energy and taking a bandwidth. But yeah, if you make it simple, you get your 5 items, It says, identify exactly what about these items is so hard on you. Again, really insightful. Like, why is this so difficult? Look at them under a microscope until you have a clear picture of the main things in your life that are negatively affecting your health. And then it says, see clearly how much it's distracting from your life. Commit to eliminating this item from your life. So this is on the bad list. Devise a plan for accomplishing this and the date by which it will be done. Write down your resolve and put some private place. You will see it often. If it is too personal and you don't want others to see it, make a symbol to remind you of your commitment. And place the symbol on your mirror or somewhere you see several times a day. Be reasonable, but be committed to your happiness. After that, go to the number 2 on the bad list. Do this for each of them. I'd be happy if my clients just did the 1. Then go to the good ones and do the same process. So I just thought that was pretty insightful. Simple. Really simple. Anybody that walks in my door could benefit from this, including myself, because it's good for us. It's like stepping on a scale. The scale gives us feedback of how we're doing. Going to confession or a friend who's insightful, a 12-step group, a therapist, we're asking ourselves, we're asking for help and some kind of feedback. And this would be a good time to say what's working and what's not working for my life. I think, if anything, there's a number of things with the COVID that's become clear, is that life's kind of short. And we want to be grateful for what we have, and we need to be aware of what we need to do to be healthiest. And I could go on and on. I'm probably going to add more to this list, and I'll probably type it up or write it up. But like, for instance, flexibility is good for me. Being flexible, not only body-wise, but even spiritually, not loosey-goosey with beliefs, but flexible to be able to see 2 sides of a spiritual thing. And I'm doing that with 2 or 3 people I admire on YouTube that I appreciate what they have to say, but it looks like they're saying opposite things, but I'm trying to be flexible to see how it works. I do believe this very strongly, is that getting stuck is probably the source of a lot of our problems, whether we're stuck in denial, stuck in anxiety, stuck in what are some of the other things? We get stuck in addiction, stuck in resentment. We just see things how we see things, and we just get stuck. And so getting unstuck is big to me. So as I was preparing tonight, I ran across a little bit of thinking what was happening a year ago. I went on a spiritual pilgrimage to Scotland, and I thought I would share a little bit of that with you tonight, and hopefully this is coming through. So I had the opportunity to go to the island of Mull in Scotland, which is on the east side in the Hebrides, and I went with a person, well, my godson, but I also got to see Father Seraphim Aldea, who is a monk who's having a monastic presence in the island of Mull, and he does these spiritual pilgrimages. And just going through these pictures and videos again, I began to realize, there's Father Seraphim, how much joy I had there. Even though I was out of my element, I was, at that time I was worrying a bit about back pain and all that. No, I was just fine. It was transformative. Here he is putting together the altar for a service that we did in St. Oran's Chapel on Iona. I can't speak highly enough about this spiritual pilgrimage. He and Sister Helena worked just constantly and yet had peace. It appeared to me. I don't know how they did it. It's like, okay, now we're going to do a liturgy. Now we're going to go here. And he had everything timed. The tide had to be just right for us to get to certain islands. So we served, well, he served liturgy, and let's see, there I am receiving communion. And we then went outside and walked around. It was just beautiful. Like, it was odd in that instead of 10 people there were only 5. My dear wife did not get to go, and my son was sick as well. My wife actually hurt her ankle, sprained it, and it was probably the right decision because she actually had broke it, and it just wasn't going to work. So we had a friend come in her place who decided to stay there. Actually, he went back. That's the backside of it. It's small, and it's just amazing to go somewhere. These are some prayer ropes that I had bought and had kind of on the outside of St. Oran's Chapel. But why I bring this up is pilgrimages are good for me. Taking time to slow down was good for me. Looking at pictures is good for me. Now, I will confess I am a knitter. I love knitting. And so I saw sheep and I looked at their wool and I couldn't wait to buy some wool. In fact, I didn't buy any here. I bought some at another shop. I got to go to a factory where the wool is processed into garments. Here's St. Ronan's Chapel, and that isn't it. I don't know where this is, but yeah, this is what it's like there. Let's see here. I guess I don't want to make you guys dizzy there. Okay, yeah, here's more of what I was going to share. So yeah, it was idyllic. And in fact, I'm just going to make a check here that you're following me there. So, okay, that's right. We're on the screen here. So, it's just a wonderful time. This is the monastery on Iona, and this cross is practically, I think, the only one left there. Oh, I'm so sorry, folks. I'm learning to make this small. I was told that there were 365 crosses all over the island. Boy, I hope I got this story correct, but I believe it's correct. Father Seraphim can help me, but there is a cross for every day, and during some persecution, they're gone, and so this is one of the last ones. But there's a saint, at least many saints honored each day, and so in this cross, you'll see story. Now, what's interesting here, this is my good godson, Moses, but you'll see that this is all worn down. And what I was also told is these were painted. And people would gather outside in front of the cross there. See how worn down things are. It really puts perspective with our problems when we see them from, this is inside the chapel, well, not chapel, the monastery. In fact, I laugh because we think we have challenges and stuff. There's a warming room That's right. In this chapel, not chapel, in this church, there is one area which was warm. The rest could be as cold as all get out. And it's where you would go in to warm yourself. And people, look how worn away that is. Who says things aren't written in stone? Yeah. It was a beautiful time. And of course, we don't live like this every day. But again, everything was just kind of taken care of. We had the meals just were there when we needed them. After we'd done something all day, then they tirelessly, Father Seraphim and Sister Helena would then go cook. And it's like, I felt like I wanted to help, and they insisted, no, no, no. You sit and have tea. And it's like, this is, I don't know about this. But that's what we did. We had a lot of tea. And their gift of hospitality is just like with the top. Well, I saw this, and it's like, yes, be still. And this was a bench. And I look for ways for help. I look for help at times. And in fact, I think I should share this, just to be honest. So, while it seems like I'm just floating through life in this wonderful pilgrimage here, the reality is I was very sad and upset my family didn't come. So I had to bend my will to whatever God's will is. I probably had some anxiety, but I said, no, I'm not going to, because I've had 5 herniated discs, not 5, my gosh, they've grown just 2. I've had back pain up until this time. It was like a lot. Afraid to get up, sit down, all this drama. Now it's kind of like gone. I was getting night sweats, all kinds of stuff. So that first night, we had traveled a lot, but I had all kinds of drama. I'll just say it's spiritual drama. And I've experienced that at a monastery before, where I won't go into the details because it would seem too dramatic and it might instill some kind of look at me. But I'll just say that you can go through spiritual battles, and we're just best calling out to God and say, God, help me. And you feel like, okay, what do I have to hold on to? There's nothing I can hold on to here. But I said, I'm in a good place. People love me here. I was adjusting to night zone or a different time zone. But in the midst of that, I let go of what that night experience was. But I'll say I was pretty drenched with a kind of night sweat thing, which kind of made me go, whoa, I hope I'm okay. And I was afraid, like, I hope I don't become a burden to the rest, and what if my irritable bladder kicks in, all that. No, just let go of that. It was like I had the time of my life. So it's like praying a lot. Oh, I know what also happened is a song came to me, which I'm not a singer. I don't want to necessarily sing it for you, but it's interesting. Oops. We don't need to look at this. Let's go to screen capture. And I will say this, that in the midst of this, in the middle of the night, I thought, well, I might as well just pray. And I went from, I guess we could say, anxiety to like blissful peace. And that's why I share this, so that if anybody's going through a hardship, what I do know is people do get better. Like I've had 2 people turn the corner where they weren't doing so good, and as bad as things were, now they're much, much better. And I'm just used to that. And so it's really important to say to yourself, look, I'm going to do what I need to do and things will get better. Well, I love the tune of the Irish song, it may be Scottish song, "Oh Give to Me the Parting Glass." It might be considered a drinking song, but it's very touching. I don't know what the story is, but if you listen to it, there's just really nice renditions of it. And what came to me was different words for this song, and then I thought how other songs in Christianity had been prior, we'll say secular songs, and then that tune was used for other words. And so I came, and I won't say I came up with, but what came to my mind is, "Oh, give to me the cross of Christ. Oh, give to me the cross of Christ. Oh, give to me the cross of Christ, and teach me, Lord, to bear it." Now that's a horrible rendition, but I was singing that under my breath throughout the day, and I had such happiness. It just brings tears to my eyes. And that's no bull. No, actually. It is a bull, and what I was sharing is not bull. I just couldn't let that pass. So we started to go into I'm going to go past the museum. I will probably do another, I'll be posting. There's dear Sister Helena. And I wanted to kind of make this this appears to be a video, but we take a trip another day by boat, bouncy boat. Then we take a smaller boat, and then we go to this inlet there, and it has to be timed just right to get to St. Brendan's Island, or St. Brendan's, I guess, chapel. And you'll see these pile of rocks is what's left. And we had a wonderful church service there. And I guess life experience is so different if you are dealing with this crisis, and there's a time to do things or not, but if you do things that are grounding, it's really, I think, important to do that. And this certainly was a grounding experience. I got lots of video here. Yeah, we had a delightful lunch, which again was packed. And the hospitality, I mean, the spiritual guidance, the experience itself was like over the top. But then they just pull out the spread. And it wasn't like it had to be luxurious food, but it was salmon and cheese and stuff for sandwiches. And we pulled it out of the packages, made it right there. It was just wonderful. And there's David, who is now there as a novice, and Father Seraphim and a friend Scott, who's a pastor, and Father Seraphim talking. I will upload these sometime. Heather on the hills. Yeah, no, it was an incredible time. But so you can notice that as I'm talking, I'm getting in the state of just feeling happy. And you want to do that from time to time. You want to hold on to what was good and pure and lovely and good report. You want to make a list of what's good for me. Now, I love photography. It's good for me. And maybe God will say it's really not good for you, but at least right now. I think I did hold the group up a bit. They were so patient, but I took plenty of photos and video. And my goal was to make a number of videos for this time. I didn't know it was going to turn into a COVID situation, but I think it's really needed to be able to have good things for people to see on the internet, things that are peaceful. You know, these saints that lived there had difficult lives. It was not easy for them, and we can't fathom it, because I know that I can go out there on a nice speedboat and I'm wearing fabric that's wind resistant but lightweight. It just shows you how comfy we are. Well, they didn't have a speedboat. They're rowing. They had probably furs they were wearing to get any kind of warmth that had to be heavy. And who knows how long it took them to get there. Then, just think of the cross we saw. I mean, there's a big cross. The base of it is what's left. A Celtic cross was there on that island. How long did it take them to carve that? Where if we did it today, it would be with some kind of jackhammer tool. And then, I mean, we had these little midgies, they're called. They're little biting flies, and we had a little bit of thought around those, and we were patient with them. We brought midgie, you know, some kind of repellent, but they didn't have that. Yeah. And then we got to get back into the nice, comfy boat and go back home, and it all works out. Where they had a difficult life, much more stronger and tougher. And I wonder, and I mean this so politely for those of us, but I think as a counselor, you have to be careful because you don't want to make people think you're making light of people's struggles. But I wonder if the crises that they struggled with are so similar to our crises. I don't think so. I think that we have adrenal glands, and our food, and we have different factors that affect adrenal glands. I think about this all the time. Even people in the wilderness, farmers, how did they survive? Did they stress over? I do think that if we toughen up in the good sense of the word, and there's a time, a place for this, it actually helps us feel not so stressed and panicked and scared. And we need those people that push us. Oh, well, here's the thing. Father Seraphim came to America. He came to our church and spoke, and I said, I would love to go. I'd been to Ireland. I'm part Scottish. I would love to go. And I said, but I have these herniated discs. And he says, well, I have a lot of them. And I thought, he flies all around on a plane. And just borrowing his faith, if that makes sense, of being able to trust, well, if he thinks it's a good idea, I'm going. Well, I am so thankful that I pushed myself to go. On that whole trip, I didn't put one ointment, maybe one ointment. I didn't do any of the special stuff. I was fine. And it's because I used the energy of the anxiety and pushed through it and turned it into excitement. I was believing that God had good things for me in this. And I think that we have to see that God has good things for us here and now. That things are going to work out. It's going to be okay. That whatever context that we're in, and I learned this from Father Seraphim just hours ago on a video. He said the same rules apply. We think that what we're going through can change the rules. But no, I still need to surrender to God. I still need to love everybody. I still have to be willing to die to what I want. I still have to pray for kindness. God's church is still going to be there for me. I don't have to know everything. And these, what I call things you would write down when you are so nervous and in the crisis, these are called truisms, things you know to be true. Now, my brain went to a picture of me hugging a cross, which is funny. I'll have to find that. I'm a cross hugger, and it was one of those big Celtic crosses. And I thought I was funny. No one else laughed, but it was interesting. I was okay. I'm a nut about this. I'm all about God, and because He has so saved me from unimaginable things. Yeah, I really, and I'm not meant to be preachy here because I understand not everybody has a faith, but the thing is when God has touched your life in such a way, and it now makes sense. The fears, the angers, the disappointments, the things and I grew up with some things that weren't the happiest, and I relate to that phrase in the Bible that says, I was ready to die from my youth. And I'm not sure what that really means, but I didn't really think there was any reason to live if this is as good as it's going to get. My great grandmother was a believer in Christ, and she had such peace, such joy. Like, I thought he was kind of a nut. Like, I didn't criticize her. I just knew that she seemed happy, and she was born in 1896. And I just liked what she had to offer and became a Christian. And then life began to make sense. I began to understand that we live in a material but also a spiritual world, that there are forces guiding us. And we need to, well, not we, I needed to be on the right side of the spiritual forces. I needed to reach out to God and say, God, help me here. And it takes practice. You have to do this over and over, and eventually God will come to you. That I can guarantee. Any sincere person who wants God in their life will find God. Yeah. I could say this is the best restaurant in the world, and you may go and go, well, that wasn't the best restaurant, because even the best things can be unreliable at times. Yeah, the best science in the world. I like science. I think it's fascinating, but it's not that reliable compared to God. We can have the best friends in the world, the best family, but when push comes to shove, maybe they die or they they let you down, but God will never let me down. And that's kind of where I went to as a youth. I went to God first, and then I kind of went to people. I came out of my shell, and yeah, my heart was broken a number of times because people would let me down, but God has never let me down. And I just take such comfort in that. And that's why it'll all work out. Here is the deal, is that I can say this now, I can believe this now, and maybe sometime in the near future I have moments where I'm plagued with negative assaultive thoughts that try to steal my peace. That's what we need to combat, and that's why we've been talking about assaultive thoughts. And I think things like this are grounding. Like Eric, if there's a hurricane out there, there are some things that always seem to be the right thing to do, like, button down the hatches and the doors, make sure you have food, make sure you have water, hold on to God. And so that's what these things are, is you hold on to them. And what I liked about it is I'm big on positive, but what's fascinating is looking at what's not good for me and becoming really clear about, I need to stop doing this. And the one I'm working on is sleep. I love to have lots of things to do, and I will find it difficult getting to bed early enough. And the problem is I get up early too. So I'm lighting the candle on both ends. Do I pay for it? I do. So I need to find a way to get the things I want to get done and sleep, and my body feels better. So, wow. Hopefully this is helpful to you. If it's not, let me know. I always want to improve. Um, yeah, yeah. I'm trying to end more on time so that because I have a number of other things to do. But I care about you guys. I ask for a blessing um, for those who are going through difficult times for you, and to not lose hope, but to be encouraged. Um, and also let me know what more you would like to see in the comments. You're welcome to subscribe if you want. I think what subscription does is help you know when we're doing things. Um, so